ChatGPT can be two things: a chatbot that answers questions or an AI agent that does actual work. Unfortunately, most sellers are still stuck with a chatbot. But once you connect it to your tools, teach it to think like an expert and put it on autopilot, it stops being a conversation and becomes a system. In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 upgrades that make that transformation happen. So let's dive in. The first upgrade we have to make is to give our ChatGPT access to our tools, to the software we use. And you've probably heard about the official connectors in ChatGPT. If we go here into their website, you can find a list of the software we can connect to our ChatGPT. Here's a few. But if you are in regions like me, in Europe, for example, the connector list is quite limited. We have Google Drive, Google Calendar, potentially Gmail. This is still extremely useful, right? Because then I can connect my email and ask ChatGPT something like this. Check my email and summarize all the recent emails that discussed martini glasses. Let's say that's our product launch. So he goes through my Gmail, finds 2 emails regarding this product, and then summarizes everything nicely right here. That is super useful, but I want ChatGPT to interact with other tools I use as well that might not be listed as the official connectors. So what I can use is one of these providers, which are called MCP gateways. The MCPs are essentially servers, what they call connectors, that allow our AI to interact with other tools. I can recommend Pipedream or Zapier. So what you're going to do is that you're going to go to mcp.pipedream.com. I will leave the link in the description below. And as you can see, this allows you to connect to over 3,000 different softwares. So it's very likely that you will find your software right here, right? It can be Notion as we see here, or it can be Asana, it can be your ClickUp, right? There are many, many options, including your seller Central. So if we go to Selling Partner API, you can connect to your Seller Central and get access to these features, to these tools, right? Retrieving sales performance reports, listing inbound shipments, and so on. I want to stress out that since these are not official, they are not perfect, right? It is a bit clunky, but it still works. So what I did here to show you, if I go to my account, I connected my Notion, Appify, which is a website that allows us to scrape websites on the internet, including Amazon, which I can then scrape reviews and bring them directly into my ChatGPT, and potentially Google Sheets, right? I can connect as many as I want, and actually on Pipedream, this MCP is free. So if I go back here to show you how to connect your ChatGPT, here you can see add server to your app. You have a URL right here, and then ChatGPT OpenAI view guide. What you have to do in ChatGPT in order to activate this, you're going to go to settings, you're going to go to apps and connectors, and you need to activate the developer mode to add custom MCP servers, the custom connectors that are not official. So I'm going to go to developer mode, activate it. And now I see here a little button. As you can see, I already created a few of these, like the Pipedream MCP, but I'm going to show you here. I'm going to go create. I can use an icon, so I can reference that easily. Custom tool, so I would give the name. You can go Pipedream MCP, some little description, and then you simply include the URL that they provide right here, and I would input it here. Of course, you understand that there are some potential security risks. Of course, Pipedream is a big company, so I'm not very concerned about that, but of course, do this at your own risk. And then you can create, which then allows you to connect to these tools that you chose here, right? So I can easily have a list of all of the tools I connected. And then if I go here into my Pipedream MCP, you can see all of the actions that I can take through this MCP server, right? I can take these actions right from my ChatGPT. So as you can see, all of these tools in Google Sheets and Notion, because those are all of the tools I created. And then simply, if I want to interact with these, I would select my Pipedream MCP, and then I can ask it to do whatever I want. For example, I asked him to go to my Notion, to my meeting database, and summarize the latest meeting for me, right? So he interacts with the Pipedream MCP, which is connected to my Notion, and it immediately said, here's the latest meeting from your meeting rhythm database, right? As you can see, I just asked, go to my Notion, my meeting database, summarize the latest meeting, and he can interpret anything he needs. So he found meeting, Q1 focus strategy sync, and then main topics, explicitly out of scope. So he summarizes everything from me, right? Now we are turning ChatGPT into proper AI agent. But what is even cooler is that when we interact with something like Epify, Epify is a tool that allows us to scrape internet. So as I ask him, use the Zapier MCP. Zapier is the other tool. This one is paid, but it works in a similar way that we can connect over 8,000 apps actually into our ChatGPT. And I can ask him to use the Epify tool to scrape specific ASIN on the US Amazon, right? And what he does, he brings all of the reviews here. So he scraped 98 reviews on this particular ASIN. That's all they have, written reviews, not that many. So he scraped all 98 reviews, and I asked him like, hey, give me the, here he actually summarized, got 98 reviews. And I asked him to summarize the top 5 pros and top cons for this product. So now he reads through the reviews and gives me these suggestions. And now I have the data set, so I could work with it, ask him to give me recommendations how to improve the product, how to optimize the listing based on the feedback from the reviews, right? The options are endless. But here, what matters is that we connected an app that's not in the official connectors easily right here, and I can do this essentially for free, right? So that is extremely powerful. I want to stress out that these MCP servers, these providers, the gateways, are not perfect, right? Sometimes it's clunky, sometimes it needs a little bit of guidance, sometimes it returns that it didn't work, so you have to ask, to try again. But the idea is there, right? It really saves a lot of effort. But the next step, what's even better, is to creating your own custom MCP servers. That is the most powerful because you choose only the tools you want, the actions you want to take, so you specify. This is a bit advanced. I'll probably make a video about this, that you can literally even skip these and create your own MCP server that you will host on your own computer. It's very, very cool, but it is out of the scope of this video. You can use this to get like 70-80% of the value out of that. The second upgrade we have to make is super powerful. We can actually build our own dashboards and apps inside of ChatGPT because it has the ability to write code and also run the code right in ChatGPT. So what we can do is we can develop our custom tool for analysis. And the analysis is actually super good because it uses code to perform calculations, right? So, which is extremely useful because from Amazon, we have tons of reports, whether it's PPC, brand analytics, inventory, and sometimes it's not easy to make sense out of all of this, especially if you are not experienced in Excel, but thankfully AI can do all of this for us. So here's a little prompt. I have to build custom AI dashboards. I'm not going to go through this whole prompt. I will link it in the AI Agent Vault in the link below. But basically this prompt is instructing it to take any report from Amazon, the CSV reports you can download, and gather the data, create a dashboard, and also use the AI reasoning to identify insights, right? So what we can do here, I have a simple example where I uploaded a particular search term report. It's like 8,000 rows, 20 columns, a big data set. I copy paste this exact prompt. And as you can see, it says you are a data analyst and React dashboard engineer, right? React is the code we are going to use to turn it into a dashboard specialized in Amazon Seller Central and Amazon Ads reports. And he then basically analyzes it and turns it into this code. But what I can do is I can preview it right here. And as you can see, it loads, and suddenly from my data set, I have this cool dashboard. Of course, I can tweak it a bit, ask him to make changes, to add different insights. But now you basically developed an app you can reuse every single time. So for example, this is search term report. It gives me analysis like top spend by campaigns, match type efficiency, and it's also using AI to identify some recommendations, right? So again, this is extremely powerful, and you can use it for any report or even combine 2 reports and ask AI to find correlations and then put it all together, not only as a data overview with some cool interactive charts, but also to use the powerful AI reasoning to tell you what to do with the data, right? So you're asking it to identify relevant insights and potentially action items, right? So as you can see, the prompt includes everything needed to get you this report. The next upgrade we have to make might not be as impressive, but it is absolutely essential. We have to learn the fundamentals of prompt engineering to really get from the generic garbage that the AI can produce in some cases to expert level work. And for this example, we are going to use the official OpenAI prompt optimizer, right? So this is the way most of us would send a prompt. I'm planning to expand my ecom brand to Europe, currently selling in US. Be my advisor, help me lay out what needs to be done. I want to know all the steps, right? Very simple. This is how most people interact with AI. But if we go to the prompt optimizer, again, the link will be in the description below, and copy paste it here, we can then click optimize, and it tells us how it would change the prompt. So as you can see, it's completely different. Suddenly we have some role and objective, instructions, context, output format, stop conditions, all of these things. I can ask to review the changes and he will give me the reasons why he's making these changes, right? This type of prompt is the one that would give us the expert level, while this one would kind of give us the generic garbage, right? That is the key difference. But the lesson here is to understand the core idea behind prompting, right? And I have a simple formula that I'm going to show you, right? It may not sound as interesting and as exciting as the other ones, but this is absolutely essential. It will help you get much, much better results from your ChatGPT. So first of all, we have the role. We always have to specify, as you can see here, the role serve as a strategic advisor. It is essential, right? Who should ChatGPT act as? For example, act as an Amazon PPC expert. Then we give it the task, what we want it to do. What's the outcome? What are the steps? For example, review my campaign data and recommend 3 budget optimizations. Then we give it the context. The context is essential, right? What do you already know? What it should consider? My AGOS is 35%, budget is 5K a month, and I sell kitchen products with 30% margins. Nice. Then constraints. What to avoid or what to follow. Keep recommendations under 1K investment and avoid suggesting new tools. And lastly, format. How should the output look like? Let's say format as action, expected impact, and timeline. This corresponds with the reasoning and structure that OpenAI suggests us to use, right? This is official prompt optimizer and it's following this exact structure, right? This is a simplified version that kind of helps us to remember these 5 steps: role, task, context, constraints, and format. If you do this, your output will be 10 times better. I guarantee it, right? There are a few bonus tips to improve your prompting. For example, reverse engineering prompt. All of us experience this, that sometimes when you interact with AI, you need to go back and forth many, many times to get the right outcome, right? So this is what traditional interaction of most people looks like with AI. I have a new product for my brand. We are going to sell a set of 4 martini glasses. Help me generate Amazon listing for this product. Then he creates it. And then I'm like, you know what? Use this example, right? I don't really like this. Use this example to kind of recreate the listing because this is what I consider a good listing. So he does that. And then I'm like, I actually need backend search terms, right? So he adds them. And I'm like, give them to me separated by comma. And also, then I maybe need 5 ideas for my secondary images. Right? So this is like ongoing interaction, back and forth, tweaking and iterating. But at the end, this is the most powerful step. That is the tip, to use a reverse engineering prompt. Once you get the right outcome and you're like, I'm probably going to do this many times in the future as well, because I'm not only creating listing once, I will be creating listings in the future. So I will simply ask, now I need to reverse engineer this whole conversation and give me the full prompt that would get me this output on the first try, including the title, bullet points, backend search terms, image ideas. Write the prompt in a way so I can easily copy it and save it and reuse it the next time I launch another product. And then he basically creates the prompt, right? I just added some confirmation here. And as you can see, now it's a long prompt. It's basically following the same structure we just learned, right? And gives us this. So the next time we launch, a different product, I can just say, I'm launching this product. This is the prompt. And he creates everything as I want from the first try. So I can save myself this long conversation the next time I do this. Well, and imagine that I do this for every single task I do in the business on a repeated basis, right? So I would just copy this, go into my here listing generator scale, right? I would just go into my text file, copy it here, and save it for future reference. We will use it later in the video. Another tip I have is to use the canvas. Like, a lot of people forget that there is this option to use canvas, which is essentially an interactive document that I can, like your Google Doc, where you can talk to and adjust, similar to your shared Google Doc you would share with ChatGPT, right? So if I ask, I'm planning to expand my ecom brand to Europe, currently selling on the US, be my strategic advisor, help me lay out what needs to be done, right? So I get the steps, but maybe I want to make some changes, right? Because then I would be like, hey, change this, split this, and he would rewrite the plan every single time. So what I can do is open it on the canvas, make changes myself. I can type here, but I can also highlight this and ask ChatGPT, right? And we are working on the document, finalizing it. And you can combine these two tips. You make the changes on the canvas and then say, give me the prompt that will get me this output from the first try, right? So this is extremely useful to, again, save you time and be more productive when it comes to prompting. Last tip is to use extended thinking, right? If we go here, when you are choosing the model, always use the model and go for the extended thinking. In some cases, you need an instant answer if you are asking for a recipe for dinner, but when it comes to business, you want accuracy, you want the best answer possible, and you're gonna get the answer with the extended thinking. It's just a click of a button. Instead of 10 seconds, you will wait 40 seconds, but the output will be significantly better. Just to show you, I have two examples where I ask the same question. How should an Amazon seller price their product to stay competitive but still profitable? This is the quick answer, start with cost clarity, analyze competitor pricing, right? This is kind of the generic surface level advice you get. But if you go for extended thinking, you're going to get something like this. This is a business owner's perspective, right? This is the high level thinking. You have formulas, how to calculate things, different angles. This is just much higher level work you can get out of this. And well, if you combine all of these points, the correct prompting formula, and you use the extended thinking, you use the canvas, suddenly your output from ChatGPT will be 10 times better. The next upgrade is to create your own AI command center and leverage all of the functionality that the ChatGPT workspace gives us. In the previous point, we talked about prompting and we talked about giving the AI context, really to get proper answers, right? But sometimes the context is not just as simple that my ACOS is 35%. Sometimes the context is my business. What do I sell? All of my products, right? What are my goals? There can be a lot of context. And the more context we have, the better the answers from AI will be. But the beautiful thing here is that we don't have to write the context every single time from scratch because it doesn't really change, right? The name of the brand, the products you sell, we can save it as what's called a master prompt. Because when we talk about context stacking, essentially giving as much context as possible to the AI to get the best answers possible, we are talking about this. Master prompt is the identity of the user, right? This defines who you are, your perspective, goals, and communication style. It's not as simple as one sentence. It requires to give as much information as possible about you, your business, and where you want to get. What we're going to do is we're going to create the master prompt so we can save it for future reference for all of our future interactions regarding our business. So we don't always have to write this long prompt every single time from scratch, which I will guarantee you would forget most of the important details anyway. So what I'm going to do, actually use the AI to help me create that prompt. So what I would do is just say, you are an expert prompt engineer specializing in creating prompts for AI language models, particularly ChatGPT 5.1 thinking model. I need you to help me write my master prompt that will summarize everything about me and my Amazon brand. Help me write it, ask me questions first. And then I get a bunch of questions I need to answer. It forces me to think about my goals, about my brand, about, the bottlenecks we have, all of the context, target customer, positioning, numbers, stage, constraints, operations, systems, tools. It will interview you, right? I would sit down, answer all of these questions, and then I would have my master prompt, which I can save and give it as a context file in the future. This will, again, significantly improve the quality of the output you are getting. And suddenly, it will feel like interacting with an employee who understands your business rather than a random chatbot online, right? But that's not everything, because the master prompt is your identity. And the second one is the system prompt. That is the role for the AI. Who the AI should be in that interaction, the function, responsibilities, and boundaries of the agent, right? And this overlaps with the prompting formula I taught you in the previous step. And here, ChatGPT actually has their own workspace that allows us to organize everything very nicely, right? Because we are talking about the system prompts. And again, we don't want to type it every single time from scratch. So what we're going to do, we have two options, right? We have projects. You've probably seen projects before, right? Right here, you would go build a new project and you can start projects. You can also create custom GPTs. But most people use this wrong because projects are actually for thinking and building. That is for something that changes over time and evolves, right? So, but this is when you plan, iterate, upload files. For example, Europe expansion. right? That is a long-term project where you need a lot of context. Or it can be revamping your brand, or developing a new brand, or creating new product line, right? That is where we have the projects, and I will explain why in a second. The second one are the custom GPTs. Like, you really need to think about these as freelancers. They are there to do specific tasks, right? For doing and repeating. They follow the same workflow every single time. So it can be like your listing strategist, your PPC data analyst, right? So almost like a freelancer that does a specific thing. The important distinction here is that in projects, we have memory, right? From all of the conversations within the project, it saves memory and saves all of the context. While with the custom GPTs, we are more using them to do a specific task. And if we distinguish this correctly, it allows us to prepare also the system prompts correctly to ask the AI to behave in a certain way. So for example, the system prompt I would use in my ChatGPT workspace right here, for my EU expansion, I would create my project. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna upload the files, all the important information, my cost of goods, the list of 3PLs I already found in Europe, of course my master prompt with all the details about me and my business, and potentially anything relevant like VAT registrations and all of that stuff. And then I need my system prompt. And of course, this is already set up in ChatGPT for you. Add instructions right here. This is where the system prompt goes, right? But I don't have the system prompt yet. So again, I use AI to actually create the system prompt. So I would ask right here, I'm currently planning to expand my Amazon brand to EU. Help me write a system prompt for this project where you will guide me through my expansion process. And it is similar to developing my master prompt, but this time he's already accounting for the files I uploaded, right? Your cost of goods, your 3PL list, your master prompt, right? So he's already creating it within the right context. And once I have answered the questions, once I have the system prompt, I would go into my instructions, add it right here, and then I can talk about it and it knows everything. I stacked the context. It knows everything about me. It knows everything it should know and how it should behave, what are its goals and responsibilities. And suddenly, every time I have a conversation about my EU expansion, it will be on point. Plus, I can share it with my team so they can also use this project where we have multiple people collaborating, right? But that's not the most powerful thing. The most powerful thing here are the custom GPTs. Because what we can do is we can essentially create freelancers and combine all of these things we've learned to give them something like this. When I go here, I would again create the system prompt where I say, I need you to help me write the system prompt for my custom GPT, PPC Analyst AI. I have a separate master prompt where I cover everything about me and my Amazon brand. The system prompt should define his role. Help me write it. Again, asking questions and giving me, specifying what this freelancer I'm essentially building out of AI should do, how they should interact, what they shouldn't do, and so on. So I can have multiple, 5, 6, 7, 10 different freelancers for specific tasks in the business. So let me show you how it works. When I go to GPTs, Explore, I will go to Create, and suddenly I'm creating a new GPT from scratch. So we already said this will be my PPC Analyst AI. I would add some nice profile photo right here, descriptions, and again, we have instructions. This is where your system prompt go. So something would look like this. I would go, always refer to the master prompt, right? Because we always need him to understand the context first. And in the knowledge file, I would go here and upload the master prompt, right? That's very useful. And then here underneath, I would go for the whole system prompt that I developed in the previous chat, right? So I will copy paste it right here. Then I would select conversation starters. Those are essentially the things we want to do the most regularly with this freelancer. So it would be analyze my search term report. So in the future, when I start the chat, I can just click the button, upload the file, and he can analyze it. I also like to choose the thinking model. We don't need image generation for this one, but we need code interpretation and data analysis, as I told you before. Very helpful. But now, a very important tip is that we can use the prompts we also created in the previous one, whether it's the dashboard generators prompt or even the listing generation, which we reverse engineered before, and we can upload it as skills, right? That would probably go to a different custom GPT, but I would do something like this. I have the system prompt, right? And then I would say, you have access to let's say, 2 skills. So skill 1 is the listing generator. Listing generator. Refer to it every time the user asks you to create a listing. And here, then I can then upload the file. So it is almost like a modular prompt he refers to when I ask him to create a listing. Of course, I wouldn't ask this from my PPC analyst, but you get the point. And also, I can upload the skill for the search term analysis, right? Which may include also creating the dashboard, right? So the next time I use this, I could just ask him, analyze my search term report, and he already goes into the knowledge file, finds how to do it, because we already built it before, and immediately generates the dashboard. So I don't need to ask anything. I just say, here is my search term report. And he does those steps exactly every single time. And now imagine you have your listing strategist that is analyzing conversion rates, business reports, brand analytics. Then you have your PPC analyst, whatever you need, right? You're creating a team of freelancers and leveraging everything that ChatGPT gives us. And this is where we actually start turning them into real agents. And the last upgrade is putting your ChatGPT on autopilot, right? Moving from reactive to proactive. And this is where I see the most potential for the future. It is just starting, so you will see a glimpse of what it could be in the future, but it is extremely useful. It is scheduling tasks that it will do automatically. So if you go back into your ChatGPT, you've probably seen this in settings and schedules, right? I can create tasks to do on a recurring basis. So for example, what I can do is I can ask ChatGPT to create me a recurring task, create a scheduled task to help me with my strategic planning. Specifically, my quarterly planning. We will start with a review of the previous quarter, then guide me through planning. So he kind of prompts me, right? We can teach him to do this. Every quarter, he prompts me like, hey, Michael, it's time for your review. Like, let's talk about the data. And suddenly I can use the MCP server. So he has access to my Notion, to my meetings, and he starts gathering the context, right? So he schedules this task. It looks like this. Run quarterly strategy lesson, tell me to run a quarterly strategy planning lesson, first review the previous quarter, then plan the upcoming quarter, act as my strategic advisor. So everything we learned, we would apply here. And when the time comes, you get a notification like, hey, Michael, it's time for planning. But this is really, again, scratching the surface, because what we can do, and I'm very excited about this once it works all properly, we can combine it with the MCPs, with the connectors, right? So what we can do is to ask him, hey, every morning or whatever, create a scheduled task to search through my Gmail and find all emails related to the new Martini Glasses launch and summarize the content here, right? So you start getting the ideas what you can do. So every morning or every Tuesday, whatever you said, he goes into my email and summarizes all of the conversations, right? So that is helpful. Maybe your team, your supply inbox, you just don't want to go there and read through all the emails. So you can just have ChatGPT every week summarize all of the emails regarding our supply chain, right? And it summarizes that. You get a notification and it's right here waiting for you, moving from reactive to proactive. And now imagine once you could combine this with the MCP service I showed you, the Pipe Dream, your Seller Central, maybe your Notion, maybe your Slack. Unfortunately, these schedules do not work with the unofficial MCP connectors yet. I believe it will work in the future, or once the software has all the official connectors, because now the scheduled tasks only work with the official ones. But in the future, once you can connect these, you can create these micro automations, right? Imagine your ChatGPT is scheduled to every Monday download a PPC report from your Seller Central, run analysis, and then send you the results on Slack without you ever touching ChatGPT, right? So that is, again, how you start turning it into proactive AI agents and moving from chatbot to an AI agent. So that's it for the video. If you want access to all of the prompts and everything else, I'm gathering this under one roof in my AI agents resource vault. There's all of the content creators I watch, and where I learn all of these things about ChatGPT and other AI to build agents, to build automations. You can also find all of the AI automations I created, all of my prompts, everything is there in one place. You will find the link in the description. And also the next video to watch is my deep dive into ChatGPT, where we dive into all of these functions in more detail. The video is almost 1 hour long. So if you use ChatGPT, I highly recommend you to watch it now. And I will see you next week. Bye.